Wow, that's a headline that just stops you in your tracks, isn't it? It feels unreal. And it forces us to ask some really tough, really painful questions about where America is today.
This is about so much more than just one person. It's really about what is our public square anymore? What's the power of our words? And what happens when the debate gets so heated it turns deadly? That's what we're going to dig in today, the real price of having a platform.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with the event itself, then get to know the man and the movement. After that, we'll dive into this huge free speech paradox and the national debate it's caused. And then, and this is the really interesting part, we'll look at how you can actually own the conversation and build your own platform.
Okay, let's get right into it. Section 1, a shot in the quad. To really get what happened next, we have to start with the day itself.
So picture this. It's September 10th, 2025, just another campus speaking event at Utah Valley University, something Charlie Kirk had done hundreds of times. It kicks off right at noon, but just 22 minutes in, security cameras catch something chilling: the suspected gunman on a nearby roof already lying in wait. Then at 12:28 p.m., a single shot rings out, and just like that, everything changed.
So who was Charlie Kirk? To understand why the reaction was so intense, you really have to understand the man and the massive movement he built. And this is where it gets complicated, right? Because depending on who you ask, you get two totally different pictures of the guy. On the one hand, his supporters see him as this grassroots visionary. I mean, he started Turning Point USA when he was just 18 years old to promote debate and dialogue. But on the other hand, his critics point to some incredibly controversial statements he made, calling the Civil Rights Act a huge mistake, endorsing the Great Replacement theory, saying some doctors should face Nuremberg-style trials. It's this split, this complete duality that's so crucial to understanding why people reacted the way they did.
And make no mistake, his organization, TPUSA, was an absolute force. We're talking a presence on over 1,000 college and high school campuses. They put on these huge events, like AmericaFest, that would draw thousands. And they were known for this very direct kind of confrontational, prove-me-wrong style of debate. It absolutely fired up his base. And, well, it drove his opponents crazy. Okay, so Kirk's death wasn't just the end of a life. It was like throwing a tanker truck of gasoline on a fire that was already burning out of control. The debate over free speech in America.
So let's just stop for a second and ask the big question. What are we even talking about when we say freedom of speech? I mean, everybody uses that phrase, but it's pretty clear we're not all on the same page.
Okay, a lot of the confusion really boils down to this. There are two completely different things that get called free speech. First, you've got the First Amendment. Think of it as a legal rule. It says the government can't throw you in jail for your political opinions. Simple enough. But then there's this other, much bigger idea, the cultural principle of free speech. This is the belief that for society to work, we have to be willing to hear out all kinds of opinions, even the ones we find awful. And in pretty much every argument you see online, these two ideas get twisted together. And you can actually see this split in the data. You know that famous line, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it"? Well, when you ask people if they agree, the divide is pretty stark. You've got 51% of Republican voters who strongly agree with that. For Democratic voters, it's down at 31%. And this is where the debate gets really messy, because it becomes about consequences. On one side, you have people saying, look, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. If you say something awful and lose your job, that's not censorship. That's society holding you accountable. But the other side comes back with, hang on, the power to shut people down isn't just with the government anymore. What about these giant tech companies? They can destroy your livelihood over an opinion. Isn't that just as dangerous? And bubbling under all of this is this old philosophical brain teaser called the paradox of tolerance. It's actually pretty simple. The philosopher Karl Popper basically said, if a society is infinitely tolerant, including of people who are intolerant, eventually those intolerant people will take over and destroy the society's ability to be tolerant in the first place. So unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. It's a real catch-22. So this isn't just philosophy class. After Kirk's death, these abstract ideas exploded into the real world, and the consequences were immediate and severe. Suddenly, there was this massive crackdown across the country. People who posted online, even just mocking Kirk's death, were getting fired. We're talking teachers, private sector workers, even a Washington Post columnist and a Secret Service agent. And the irony was just thick. You had Republicans, who are usually champions of free speech, calling on tech companies to ban users. The government itself even started looking into the legal status of immigrants based on their social media posts. The whole thing was a whirlwind.
Okay, all this chaos, people literally losing their jobs over a post, it forced everyone to ask a really uncomfortable question. Can we actually trust the platforms we're all using to have these conversations? I mean, think about it. If the terms of service can change overnight, if your voice can be silenced just because a CEO or an online mob decides they don't like what you're saying, is that really free speech? What's the alternative when you just can't trust the platform? And this really hits on the core problems with all the big social media sites we use, right? Your data is stuck in these silos. You can't take your followers from one platform to another. You have basically zero control over how your data is used for ads and who knows what else. And the big one, you can be kicked off at any time for any reason. Your entire platform gone in a puff of smoke. So for a lot of folks, the answer isn't to find a nicer tech giant. The answer is to get rid of the giant altogether. The solution they're pointing to is something called a decentralized web. It's this idea of going back to an internet where you, the user, own your data and control your own platform. And listen, this isn't just some sci-fi fantasy. We're talking about a real, practical guide to digital autonomy. It's about shifting in the power online, and believe it or not, the tools to do it are within reach. You're gonna love this. You can run an entire independent social network on a computer the size of a credit card. It's called a Raspberry Pi. This little thing has enough juice to host your own platform right from your house. Now, okay, it does take a little bit of tech savvy, but the basic idea breaks down into 4 steps. First, you get the Pi ready. Second, you create a secure tunnel to the internet so you're not just broadcasting your home address. Third, you lock it all down with encryption. And finally, you install some free open source software. The whole point is to go from being a renter on someone else's digital property to being a homeowner of your own. This picture really shows you what it's all about. Instead of all of our conversations flowing through one giant company in the middle, each person can have their own little server. You talk directly to each other. There's no middleman listening in, no central company that can shut you down. It's a totally different model. So that brings us to the final and maybe most important question. If we all have our own platform, our own little digital castle, do we end up talking to each other more, or do we just end up building thicker walls, creating the perfect echo chamber? That's the big unknown here. It's both the promise and the peril of this whole idea.